While Western Australia may seem a long way away, for the sometimes insular eastern states, there's not a carnival that goes by in the east that doesn't have some sort of WA success attached to it. A lot of the big owners and breeders in the west have derived their wealth outside the racing industry, and it's all the better for their input. One such example is Geisel Park's Eddie Rigg.
Eddie, it's fantastic to see you over here and to go out to Geisel Park, and we've had a feature story on your 4 stallions and the great staff and a beautiful property. What is it in particular that made you love racing in the first place, to get involved to this level?
I saw as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old the impression that winning a race, the excitement, what it can do for you, right? The racing industry is just like the normal bell curve. You've got these people who can be not so good on the one end of the spectrum, but you get people at the other end of the spectrum are just champions, right? And and I'm really close to some of those people, and I really enjoy it.
It's very similar. I know Kevin Maloney, who has Sedgenho Stud, talks about when you're buying horses, it's like drilling for oil. Yeah. And I guess you'd have the same sort of analogies between, the trading, the stockbroking, and buying horses. I mean, there's so much risk involved in both. There's a huge amount of knowledge you need to be successful in either. But how do you see the similarities? Because it is a game of risk when you're buying thoroughbreds.
The difference between horses and stocks, and particularly codes, is I love a horse. So, I actually like the horse, right? A company, I don't have that much personal feel for some companies. Some of the companies I get very personally involved with them. I would tell one lesson coming out of the stock market, which I think people could learn in the racing game, is sell your losers quickly and go with your winners long term. And it's just such an important thing. And I made a mistake, but I sold my best fillies and my best racehorses. That was just a dumb thing. And I kept my lesser horses. So one thing I'm learning now is that keep with your good horses. Our whole focus now is making sure we have those great racehorses, fillies now, that become mums and grandmums. And when we're sitting in the stands there at 75 years of age at the races, we're watching horses which we own the granddam of. I had some really great offers on Laced Up Hills, but particularly after she beat Amelia's Jewel here, like really, really solid offers. But for me, I want to keep her and race her.
You build so much up to get to that point, and then to lose it, you miss the next step, don't you?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the really important things. See, I love the horse. I was a mad horse rider as a youngster, so I love nothing more than going on the farm and walking around and hugging horses. And in the afternoon, it's quite nice, particularly if you've got a beer in your hand and you're walking around, and the mares love it and the younger horses like it, and it can be a bit dangerous with the weanlings and yearlings. We're running around being idiots. So that's pretty cool.
So Geisel Park itself, obviously named, after Dr. Zeus. Yeah. Tell us a bit about, setting that up.
The name was, I wanted to have a theme, and Dr. Zeus, and I like having a bit of fun. Like some people try and name it after the sire and the dam, but I find that pretty beige. I used to race horse with Ron Sayers, and the amount of abuse he used to give me, because I'd get name one, he'd get the name one, and he just didn't like the way I named him. But when they won, Fulledy-Duddle. We had Fulledy-Duddle win the champion fillies, and second Bippo Bungas came second, right? So Ronnie had a lot of laugh. He enjoyed that, but some of the names he didn't like so much, right? So I like Dr. Zeus, just the whole thing about Theodore Goose and Geisel Park. He's the top 5 dead person in earnings and royalties per year. He's learning to read, right? Although the woke community are trying to stop some of his books now, which is just amazing. But so he was successful, but had some funny names. So I ran out of names there, and I thought to myself, as people know, I moved on to the castle now, and not everyone gets those names. I did have challenges with some fellow owners over in Melbourne where I named a horse Move the Tirana. But I'm going to have a lot of fun at Rissoles I've got there. I've got some nice horses coming through on that basis. So I just wanted to do something agricultural-wise that kept me with my roots. End of the day, I always thought I'd be a farmer, and for a whole lot of reasons I couldn't be. But now I've got the stud. We intend within very soon to be the 3rd biggest holder of property in WA. So the company I set up, and only Gina and BHP being ahead of us.
Incredible.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, and 4 stallions. So
Yeah.
Asar is so exciting, isn't he? The half brother to Home Affairs. Winning Rupert by Written Tycoon. I mean, he's just outstanding. And of course, Samana Sione, he's flying at the moment. All American and Manhattan Rain. I mean, these are just highly credentialed, beautifully bred, with racetrack performance and stallion performance. Very different sorts of opportunities for broodmare owners.
I always wanted to stand a stallion, and it started and stopped a bit. I learned from the early piece that when I buy stallions to have more than one person involved, because that sort of validates but also supports the stallion. When Asar came up, I was really looking for a stallion off the track. He's by Deep Field, who's going super. He's out of a half sister to Russia Revolution, and he's a half to Home Affairs, and he was half a length from beating Ole Kirk in the Caulfield Guineas. He wins that. He's standing in the Hunter Valley for 50 grand, right? Winning Rupert, I mean, these opportunities come along, and the Fernie family are very close to the Fernie family. I almost feel like I'm a friend of Peter before I'm a client of him, training a client relationship. And Luke rang me up and said, look, what do you think? And I said, mate, big decision, I own a stallion. He goes, I've got 16 minutes. I think that's how it was. And he said, will you stand it for us? I said, sure. He seems ideally suited. The West Speed Platinum system here we got is unreal. And if he's not a perfect West Speed Platinum horse, I don't know what is.
At 100,000 this time, he goes bidding for 100,000.
How do you see the way the system is set up here? Obviously, Magic Millions has the major sale. How do you see the way that the industry is working here from if you're breeding horses, trying to get them out into the market?
My view is that the 350 we put through the sale on the 2 days is about the right number. And I think that to increase that sales number of horses sell, I don't think our buying bench is here. And I'm convinced on that. I'm really strong on that. And I think anything more than that's going to dilute. And I think there's a certain amount of money which will go through our sales ring, and it's about $21 million, $22 million. And if we had another 100 horses, I don't know if that number would change materially. But what it would mean is every other horse would be lower, the average would lower dramatically. So I'm very strong. I think Magic Millions have got it right. People need to realise that they're either breeding to race, but if you're breeding to sale, you need to look at what your mare is, and you need to look at the stallion you're going to. And there's too many of these mares. There's 5 mares on the page. There's hardly any black type. They're just not suitable, right? And I just think those days of doing that and expecting to get into the sale are gone. One of the challenges, and I did a bit of work with the new West Speed Platinum system, and one of the analysis we did was that there's a certain number of mares need to go and fold in the state to keep up the race numbers, to have a certain amount of races. And we were trending the wrong way here, and the West Speed Platinum has actually adjusted that. We can't just have 300 and 400 horses bred to go to the 350 in the sale. That can't work. We need to be breeding more like the 800, 850 horses here a year.
To fill race fields.
To fill the race fields. All the race field numbers will reduce. And once you get down below 7 or 7 below, the betting doesn't happen, right? So it's really critical that we are still breeding 850, but there just needs to be a realisation there's a lot of racing to, the breeding to race. The 350 is about where we're at, right? I don't know. I don't know. There has to be a magic wand to deal with those people who want to breed to maybe perhaps not a commercial stallion, out of not a commercial mare, and to sell it, it just doesn't make sense. It's like me in the stock market. You've got a average management team going into an area we know doesn't have very much chance of finding gold's almost zero, and putting money into it. You're going to lose. But there's a lot of passion in the industry, which people confuse passion with investment sense. And I do that too, don't worry, I do that too as well. But it's just not viable. And if they sat back and someone's advising them, they'd be saying, don't do it. We can't go to elite, because we've already got the best horses racing. That's the challenge, right? We still need the grassroots, but I do think, it's like the AFL, what funds footy in this country? At the end of the day, it's Collingwood and it's West Coast and a couple other sides actually primarily fund the rest of the industry, all the way down. So the top level racing has to be strong. Anyone who sort of says, well, we should take prize money off the top level racing and give money to the lower level, I can guarantee everyone will get less. That's how it works. The top end of racing has to be supported.
Are we lacking something in Australia for not having you know, a more national approach? Do we
100%,
need it?
100%. I can tell you now that the transformation of the Australian financial system dramatically changed when we introduced the Corporations Act in 1991 and unified the stock exchanges in 1992 or 93, whatever it was. Before that, every state had their own exchange, every state had their own laws. And the transformation of ASX as a powerful financial and driver of the Australian economy just expanded from then. I've got no doubt in my mind the way New South Wales has handled wagering, the way they've been able to collect a bigger cents in the dollar for wagering, is just the absolute gold plate way we should be doing across Australia. We have the same rules across Australia, everyone knows about it. I just think that the industry will just fly ahead. Now there's going to be people get their nose out of joint, you know, New South Wales versus Victoria, that sort of concept. Get over yourself, right? This is just too big for, you know, the benefits will be so dramatic. And it was so dramatic for the finance industry, right? It's just so dramatic. It was, you know, it's just amazing. We are the most isolated capital city in the world. You know, we're as close to Jakarta as we are to Sydney. And so we have to solve our own problems. And, you know, we're not relying on government handouts here. This is not a place for government handouts. Plus we have, you know, people like Gina Reinhardt. And look, she's a ripper. I mean, she's a proud patriot Australian, right? And she just wants to make this place, this country, the greatest it can be, right? And the amount of, you know, things she does. And Twiggy, I mean, he seriously gets on and does things. And we got, and even Kerry Stokes, I know he spends most of his time over east, but these are guys who really try and make this country a better place. And we're lucky to have those people here. And they've got lots and lots of money, I get it, lots and lots of money, but they try and make Western Australia and Australia a better place. And I love it.
I love Western Australia and we'll be back. Thank you.